and you think to that Japanese crowd will certainly play into that. And obviously, really worth pointing out is that the US fans have definitely taken to Shinsuke Nakamura in a way that, you know, probably WWE haven't seen from a Japanese star sort of get over to that audience as well as he has. Probably, period, I would imagine. I don't know that any other Japanese wrestler they've always signed has always done that typical Japanese theme. And it never sort of works, does it? But with Nakamura, he is his own thing. They've let him do it to a degree, and you know he's over. I mean, everybody knows who he is, and everybody wants to see him, and it's working. So there has to certainly be more options now to bring in more of the Japanese talent over, and he's got to be up there. You know, certainly for a viable option, especially long term with him as well. So interesting to see where that plays out and whether WWE, you know, do try and sign another guy. To me, it's not, you know, it's not majorly important for WWE to do it, and you know, at this point. But you know, you never know, because WWE do like to stock up. It seems at the moment, Matt, on talent. You know, they seem like they've stockpiled quite a lot to the point where they have to keep guys like Joe and Nakamura away from the main rosters, which is incredible when you think about it. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops and if there will be any future on that. Good news, finally, Matt. TNA finally as all official now. I don't know what the official title is, but Anthem Sports, is it? Have got the takeover. I'm hearing that Dixie Carter is still involved, though, and to what degree I don't know. For them, Matt, the only thing I suppose at this point is at last they've got a buyer, and finances are going to be okay, at least at the moment. And I guess at the moment it's all about clearing up a lot of the debts and all the rest of it. But you know, the future a little bit more bright for TNA. They've still got to sort out a lot of TV stuff, and you know, they've lost their UK over here. I mean, I don't know if anybody's going to pick that up straight away from here, because if I was a British broadcaster, I'd look at Ring of Honor as being an option at the moment, because they're just more consistent than TNA. And I just wonder, you know, they're going to have... They haven't decided to rechange the name, Matt, and I wonder if that works against them when they do go into these TV stations and try and sell the product, if that hasn't already sort of got a name for itself as being a bit of a disaster after you sign them up. Do you think they have to prove themselves for like a good 12 months, Matt, of just being, you know, solid and, you know, consistent? As I'm not talking about the wrestling, but I'm talking about as the company who's running this thing at the moment.
Yeah, I would say it's going to be a very difficult year, because, you know, I'm surprised that someone has thrown them a lifeline, you know, now after all that's happened with them. But, you know, they've got it now. But I would definitely say it's going to be a difficult year, because, like you said, a lot of people are going to be watching this thinking, well, I'm going to give it, you know, 6 months to see how these storylines progress, or how much that money they're actually willing to inject into this thing. Are they willing to make any dramatic changes? Because so far, you know, I've seen like the first one since they've taken over, and it doesn't really look like much has changed. I know it's early, like, to comment on that so far, but you know, it just looks like it's picked up pretty much from last year. No dramatic changes, just a big A on the side of the ring now. So I would hold off like on any negotiations or whatever if I was looking at TNA. You know, and like you said, Ring of Honor does seem like a better option. I mean, it's definitely got a big following in the UK. It's just a shame that we don't have a means of watching it here. And in fact, if it came to a choice between the two, like TNA on the UK TV or Ring of Honor, I would go for Ring of Honor.
Really? Yeah, I'm with you on that, and on that one for sure. Just wrestling wise, yeah. I mean, they you know, and UK for a long time had been one of their best markets, but of course now, what you got to think about, what we've just been talking about with WWE here, that is going to have a significant you know, thing to do with TNA. I mean, you know, to sell tickets now. I mean, I'm not saying TNA wouldn't be able to sell a show, but you know, you've got to think, Matt, if WWE are going to have a presence in the UK, what does that do for other companies that like to tour over here? You know, it is going to have an impact whether you like it or not. There's going to be something coming out of it, and does that mean that someone like TNA is going to have a more of an issue of getting into buildings and trying to sell it, you know, for as much as they could get out? Because again, when WWE is only over a couple of times a year, fans just want to go and watch wrestling, especially stuff they see on TV. But if you're not on TV in this country, Matt, who's following that product? Who wants to go out and see TNA? Because they weren't cheap tickets. They're not like the typical local show rates. They were, you know, trying to put off big money, and I don't know if they're going to be able to get that back, Matt. In terms of that, that'd be a problem.
From my point of view, like you said, wrestling tickets aren't cheap. So if I know I'm only going to be able to see it twice or 3 times in the UK, then I will be saving up my money for the WWE shows, because I'm following that every week and I know what's going on. I'm not going to say I'm not following TNA, because I am, but I imagine a lot of people, casual wrestling fans or people going with their kids, their kids will want to support the wrestlers that they know. And if TNA is in a phase like it is now, rebuilding and trying to make new stars, it's not going to get their new stars across too well if nobody knows who they are.
Sure, and it's that investment. It's that investment of like having the WWE subscription. You know, you feel like you've invested enough in it to then want to go and see it. And it's that kind of mentality sometimes. I think they definitely worked that in to try and do that with their live shows. You know, like you've got the networks, and now come along when we're here to come and watch us. Okay, well, now let's move back to WWE, Matt, and you know, surprising that it's not one of our top subjects, but we've had so much to talk about, especially with last night and all the rest of it, and all this other stuff. But WWE Royal Rumble is fast approaching, Matt, and probably for a time, I can't remember, but the anticipation to it has been built since, well, not too long after Survivor Series, when they announced Brock and Goldberg would both be in it. For starters, that gave it some credibility already. We were thinking, well, okay, that's good. We're going to get 2 big names in it. Now, what's next? And you know, we've had you know, the Undertaker, and we've had a few sort of comings in. And what are you making of going into, you know, the actual Rumble match itself, Matt? Because like I said, you know, it's not been pretty in the last 3 years. I felt like not just winners, but the actual Rumble match. It was, even last year, it wasn't very spectacular. Like, there were a few things. I actually went back on some really old notes and listened to that episode when we reviewed last year's, and you know, I remember talking about in it where I was even saying, like, even Kofi Kingston didn't even have a usual Royal Rumble spot. Even he was just eliminated. So it's just not been great, has it? They've got to get it right this year, Matt, with a bit of luck, because, you know, big crowd, they want to make some history. It's the 30th anniversary, San Antonio, they're back there, all the rest of it. You know, can surely they get it right this year, Matt, with what they're setting up? Is there enough going on to keep us interested?
Yeah, now, actually, for once, this Royal Rumble is got me quite excited, you know. I mean, I don't want to have to regret this or jinx it by saying this.
Oh, you might regret it.
But going into this one, I have a good feeling about it. I mean, for instance, like the Royal Rumble match itself, I'm hard pressed to find like a time in recent memory when they've had a star-studded Rumble like this, having such great names as Jericho, Brock, and Goldberg, if you like, you know, and Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, you know, like whatever the list keeps continuing of great names that could have potential to win this, and even surprise entrants like we could possibly have Finn, could possibly have Joe. Yeah. And Braun Strowman's going to be in there, of course. And that says something else about, like, the thing I love about Royal Rumble is the unpredictability. So if Braun Strowman is one of the favourites to win it now, which a lot of people are saying, then that's definitely going in a different direction, and actually something more spontaneous and something more in keeping with what the Royal Rumble should be.
Yeah, it's certainly the bookies always is fascinating, because they've gone out on this early in this country, which they don't normally do, but they've been very up and down. You know, The Undertaker was a very strong favourite even before he turned up on Raw, and now he's almost currently, as we're talking now, he's actually level 5-2 in UK odds here. favourite with Braun Strowman. So, I don't even think they know for a change, which is good. Because whenever it keeps changing the way it does, it means they haven't got a clue, which is showing that the Royal Rumble is not as predictable as it has been in recent years. So I do think, even though there may be 4 or 5, I've heard a lot of snippets of other names that keep cropping up. Like I think a real dark horse in this would be someone like Baron Corbin. Because I've heard a few things about him recently about WWE wanting to take a real chance on him, and he's the sort of guy, again, that's the sort of unpredictable one that you wouldn't mind. Again, guys like Bray Wyatt, who always try and praise every year, I just hope he does something this year. That's getting very repetitive now, but I never know. But oddly enough, Matt, Randy Orton's been pretty much consistent in a third slot favourite. Would that be something? Is that still a surprise if we saw Randy winning in a more storyline driven kind of Royal Rumble win, or would you be a little bit still disappointed that it's not somebody sort of more fresh?
It wouldn't surprise me if all the way up until the Royal Rumble day, Randy Orton is Plan B. I mean, I guess you can do a lot more for wrestlers, but it would be easy to go with Randy Orton because they could get a story out of him, and they know that he can work at the top level very easily. And WrestleMania's if he's in the main event of a WrestleMania, that's just another one to his collection.
Sure.
It'll be easy to go with Orton. But for me personally, I hope they go with someone else. But I can see why he's in that slot because it could easily be that way, and you go into a match against whoever the champion is, or if something happens with the Wyatt family like now, because it looks like it's ready to sort of at the beginnings of an implosion, or they're going to fall apart. Then that can all build up to that as well. Or perhaps in the Royal Rumble. That's why I wouldn't go with Randy Orton, because I could see more stuff between Randy and Luke happening.
Yeah, I don't often like ones that are storyline driven when you get a Royal Rumble winner. Sometimes it works well, other times not so well. One of the ones that worked really well was when Batista first won it, and they had the whole Evolution breakup where he had to choose what champion he was going to wrestle, and then that's how it all kind of fell apart. But I'm not always keen on that. I remember when Randy Orton won it 1 year, Matt, I think you'll remember that, when he had the Legacies helping him all the way through, and it set him and Triple H up, and it wasn't sort of breathtaking finale that we're used to seeing. So I do, because people were actually saying well, Randy's never won it. He has won it. I got a few emails in about that. I will tell you, he's won it. He went into WrestleMania 25, so he has won this. For anybody that thinks it's something that's on his list to do, he is one of them. Someone who's not won it, Matt, who could be on his list, that was second favourite for a long time, was Chris Jericho. And again, that was very storyline driven into probably why they went with him being that far up. But would that would be quite shocking, I think, if Jericho was to win at this point. For me, I'm not sure how I'd feel about that. But is that something we want to see, or would that just be too predictable, and then we know exactly where it's going, type of thing?
Well, he's just recently picked up the US title, which was another thing on his list of I haven't done this yet. So to go with the Royal Rumble shortly after that, it would just be like he's ticking off all the boxes of things to do before he retires. So I wouldn't really particularly want him to win the Royal Rumble match. I mean, I know it's something that he should have on his list of achievements, being the great wrestler that he is, but I don't find any rush for that. I mean, this guy, I'd say, has got a lot on his plate. And I would say at this point, don't really stretch him too far. Just play out the US title storyline, whatever they're going to do. Have him drop that at Mania possibly, and then I know he's got other plans coming up. Not so far off in the future. So if he's going to do the stuff that he does for his rock band, then then that will be the time to do that after WrestleMania, hopefully.
Interestingly enough, in between that is two wrestlers that have not been active, or one of them has been active at all on the main event roster, which is Finn Balor coming in at full favourite, and Samoa Joe, Matt, who's pushed up on the odds market very, very quickly. But now, that would be a shock if Joe was to debut and win the Royal Rumble, certainly, for me. But We spoke about Finn Balor